because you know mineu bay that the mitzvah of Yibum is doicha a chayve krisos because it's eshizach. So what's the difference between eshizach and the chaysisha and chamoisai and the chaysai, right? Really, the mere fact that there's a mitzvah of Yibum should automatically tell us that asay doichaloisha even sheyesh by chorus. So Toshus asked that kasha, and he answers, if you would enforce the issur of Eishes Ach, then there would be no such thing as Yibum. So by definition, when the Torah said there's a mitzvah of Yibum, and it's only possible to do the mitzvah of Yibum by being over Eishes Ach, that's the Torah saying explicitly that I am making a waiver on the issur of Eishes Ach. But all the other ayahs aren't necessarily present when there's a mitzvah of Yibum. So for that, we need to know why is it that it's not doicha. So the Gemara ended up bringing a raya from Achoshisha. Achoshisha was the flagship case where the Torah told us the word Aleha to indicate that even when there's a mitzvah of Yevama Yavai Aleha, you should still not marry your wife's sister. Loisichach litra. What's the lashon? It says in the pasuk, Isha lachosha loisikach litzor liglois ervasa Aleha b'chayeha. So the word Allah tells you that even in the condition of Yibum, you should still not be over the arayis of a chaysisha. And it says litzor as well to tell you that it answers even the tzaris. And from there we learned all other arayis in the Torah that they are doicha the mitzvah of Yibum. And we also learned that the only time that tzaris are nesar is only if the erva is an erva on one of the brothers, but not on the other brothers. But an erva that's an erva on everybody and all the brothers, that would not create an isser tzara. Okay, beautiful. Now we are up to the next Gemara, which is all the way at the bottom of the Gemara days. My timer, Darminon. Let's go back. Timer the Kazer Chaman Nolel. So based on the Gemara we learned, the reason why we don't say, the reason why we don't allow an erva to do Yibum is because it says Allah. Allah, if we didn't say Allah, Ahava mina achaysisha miyabemes. You're suggesting that you would think that an achaysisha and all the other arayis, even though they're an erva, there's a chi of course, they would do Yibum anyway. Why would I have thought that? My timer. Obviously, because the Algemein Svar, the general Svar that we have all over the Torah, there's a concept of Asiyasei v'dochi loisaseh. Correct the Gemara, Emor Darvinian Asiyasei v'dochi loisaseh by a loisasa greda. If it's a plain asay, but loisasa yesh by kares. When we're talking about a loisasa that has kares, midachi, why would you assume that as a default, the asay, the mitzvah of Yibum, would be doicha the loisasa of the erva? So there's actually two shitas, two explanations in how asay the dochi loisasa works. So Akiva is not here, but Akiva appreciates the Hasidic spin on what the reason would be. And the Ramban says that a kumva say, immediately do the kumva say, that represents the midah of Avos Hashem, because it makes you do something for the Rebbeinu Shalom. While refraining from doing a loisaseh represents Yirah. Everybody knows serving the Rebbeinu Shalom with Ava is greater than serving the Rebbeinu Shalom with Yirah. So when they come up against each other, the Ahava trumps the Yirah. That's what the Ramban says. Other Rishonim learn is that when the Torah gives an assay to do something, the Torah is in that place removing the loisaseh. In other words, the loisaseh does not apply in the event where there's an assay. So where does the chapanaf kamina between these two svaris? In a case where there's a loisaseh assay, we know that even though assay is doicha loisaseh, but assay is not doicha a loisaseh ve'assay. So from one side you have an assay to do something, and on the other side is a loisaseh and an assay telling you not to do it. Then you don't say assay to assay. Well, what happens if someone does it anyway? He wasn't supposed to do the assay because it's an assay and a lois on the other side. He did it anyway. So is he over the loisaseh? The assay for sure he's over. There's an assay connected assay. The assay is for sure over. Is he over the loisaseh? So if you learn like the Ramban that Ahava always trumps Yirah, then you're not over the loisaseh. Because the fact is you did Ahava instead of the Yirah. But if you learn that in the event of an assay and a loisaseh, the loisaseh does not apply under those situations, well, when there's a loisaseh of assay, the loisaseh does apply. So that means the person would be over the loisaseh as well. So that's actually enough meaning la halacha if someone is over the loisaseh in addition to the assay. I would assume if there's Ahava Yirah on one side and Ahava on the other side. And the say, I'm not sure if there's such a thing as an assay connected assay. Maybe there is. I never thought of that. I don't know. It's a good point. I don't know. Okay, so let's see what the Gemara says. The Sufra the Gemara, Loy says a great dominola. So this is a Velt Sugya. How do we know that assay doicha loy? Good morning. We're up to a Velt Sugya, a Shas Sugya. How do you know that as assay doicha loy? The Su Loy says a great dominola in the document. How do you know that an assay is doicha loy? Dixiv Loy Silbus Shatnis Gedilim Tasalacha. So unfortunately, I have my old Gemara from Lakewood, so I don't have new Oiz V'Hadars, which has everything at the side. So I have to look it up inside. So this is in Devarim. It's in Devarim Perk Chav Beis. So let me see what it says over here.
Hey, sorry, isn't the classic if two competing assays, kibbud av, right? If your father tells you not to do a mitzvah assay, isn't that the classic? Where you have two assays?
I didn't even think of that. So your father tells you don't do a mitzvah assay.
Yeah, the classic is don't keep Shabbos, but then you've got Shomer V'Zocher. But if they say don't do a mitzvah assay for Shabbos, don't make Kiddush on Shabbos.
So that's not assay d'chalosha because
it's a mitzvah assay to listen to kibbud av, listen to your father. Your father's telling you not to do something. That's the classic.
Your father tell you, so I'm trying to think. One's a kum v'asay, one's a shov al tasa.
One's become you're going to not listen to him. So shov al tasa, is that what you're saying?
You say shov al tasa. You're not listening to him, but you're not doing something while you're not listening to him.
Oh, you can't be mekayim the mitzvah of kibbud av if you don't listen to the direct order.
I'm not sure if you could. Yeah, you only could be mekayim. You could only be mekayim and say if you do something. Yeah. If you listen to him not to do something,
if he tells you to do something and you don't do it.
So then you're violating an assay because there's an assay against it.
Right.
I hear. So we already know that we already know the halacha is there. The Torah trumps the kibbud av. I don't know. It's a good point, but that's a good example.
Because also you have tatar v'she'eno tatar, right? So you have two mitzvahs assay that come at the same time. You can't necessarily do both.
Yeah, but that's not doicha because you can do it one after the other.
What if they're both?
They're not contradictory.
No, but what if they're both?
They're contradictory?
Okay. So you just won't be able to do one because of the other. You have a mitzvah.
You do one now. You won't be mevatel.
Let's say the time for it runs out. You have a mitzvah of. You have
two mitzvahs to say that are both going to run out, and you only have time to do one.
Correct.
I hear. Okay, so that's a good example. Okay, so let's see what it says over here in the passage. It says.
So remember the story of davening with a minion or going to your chaver's
wedding. I hear. Okay, it says in the pasuk it says gedilim. Okay, first it says loy sil b'shatnes semer upishim yachto. And then right after that it says gedilim tasaloch. You should make yourself tzitzis al arba kantois ksuscha asher t'chasaba. So the Gemara says it's false. It says loy sil b'shatnes, and then right after that in the next pasuk, as we saw, it says gedilim tasaloch. Well, Amar Rabbi Lozer, and Rabbi Lozer said, "Smuchim min atayra minay." So this is how we know that asay d'chalosha. Rashi says, it says l'shatnes v'samach like gedilim tasaloch v'darshinan smuchim the fact that these two mitzvahs were placed back to back by the Torah is clearly trying to tell us something. And it tells us that Visharinon Klayim Betzitzis. What if you have a beged of linen? You're allowed to put on tzitzis of wool on a beged of linen, even though normally that will be Shabbos. But the assay of Gedilin Pasalacha is doiche the loisil b'Shabbos, and the way we know it is because right after the Torah says loisil b'Shabbos, the Torah says but Gedilin Pasalacha. So the Smuchim tell us that we should be doiche the loisil by doing the assay. So this is the source of assay doiche loisil. So I just want to stop for a second. So that would be a reason why the assay of Yibum would be doiche the loisil of Arayas. So let me ask you a question. A man has a mitzvah to do Yibum. Is there a mitzvah for the woman, for the wife to do Yibum? Because if there's no mitzvah for the wife to do Yibum, she can say, Shkoyach, you might have a mitzvah of Yibum, so you have an assay doich aloisaseh, but I have a loisaseh, I don't have that assay. Zanish kan tzadik of ma'acheshbon, right? So there are those who bring a raya that it must be that the woman also has a mitzvah of Yibum, because otherwise it wouldn't work. But there are others. There might be a zika. She might be also l'shuk. But who said she has a mitzvah to say to do evil?
What's the
A man's will.
What's the punishment of shatnez?
It's a lav. If you wear shatnez, you get malchus.
So then maybe that case is in the raya because we're talking about cars over here, and they're talking about malchus.
Well, the Gemara brought that up as a suggestion, and maybe there's a difference because it's a lois ashish bekaris, right? That was one of the things the Gemara brought up that we have to resolve. So that's a very good question. The Gemara asked that question. So the other pshat that they say, even if the woman does not have a mitzvah of Yibum, it could be when you say asay dech aloisaseh, or when the Torah says do the mitzvah of Yibum, the Torah is taking off. By definition, the Torah is taking off the isser of eishes ach at that time. So Mamela, it's not an isser at all. That's how some of them are. Okay, so let's see what the Gemara says.
So she'd have a mitzvah of Yibum for what reason?
Because the Torah says she should do Yibum.
For what?
Why should she do Yibum?
Yeah, what's the purpose of Yibum is to have a child with in the name of the brother, right? Of her original husband.
The purpose of Yibum is because the Torah says you have to do Yibum. What?
Doesn't the Torah tell you why? Doesn't the Torah give you a reason?
Lachem shem lachem.
Yeah.
So the same purpose that would be for him would be for her.
Okay, but that would require her to have a child, and the Torah
Well, that's another question. What if a woman does Yibum and they don't have children? Is she mekayim the mitzvah of Yibum?
But I thought women aren't mechuyev in pruruvu because it's necessarily dangerous.
This isn't pruruvu. This is lahakum shem lachem. Sure, it happens to involve pruruvu.
That's a rather. That's like you can't say that's tangential. But
that's the fact.
You can't do one without the other.
And the Chanami, but the mitzvah she gets.
70 years old, you know that she's not going to have children.
If she can't have children, I don't know if she's mechuyev even. A woman who cannot have children is not mechuyev even. Even an older woman, even though we know for sure she can't have children. Interesting. So that's what bringing up another thing is women who can't have children do Yibum. So clearly the din of Yibum is not directly related to Pruruvu.
Isn't that the same as an islandess?
I don't know. I guess we'll have to, as we learned the Masechta, these are good questions. We know the islands does not do Yibum, but Mati says an older woman is doing Yibum. Maybe because it's possible that she could have children if they would today with medicine. I don't know. Or maybe as a Kenyan does do. I don't know. I guess if we're learning Masechta Yevamos, hopefully by the time we finish Yevamos, we'll get all these shilas answered. V'amar Rabbi Lozer. So Rabbi Lozer said, we're building a massive Torah, pan-Torah halacha, that I say the halacha, and we're basing it all on the fact that two psukim were placed back to back. Where in the world do you get such an idea that you could build such towers with the fact that two psukim are in close proximity to each other? Smuchim Shenamar Smuchim la'ad la'olam. Smuchim are forever and ever. Asuyim, they're made be'emes with truth, v'yasher, and righteousness, and gladness. So that's the makar that you could rely on Smuchim. How do you know if a woman loses her husband To make matters worse, her brother-in-law, who now she has to marry, looks like a monster, and she doesn't want to do it. So really, all the do-gooders, the framakis, will say, "No, you should do it. It's a mitzvah. You'll see. You'll be happy." All of the tzaddikim. How do you know that they're not such tzaddikim at all? She'ein chosh b'noisa. Chasima means to plug someone's mouth, like sachsim shor b'dishay. So you don't plug her mouth. In other words, when she expresses the fact that she doesn't want to marry this guy, you don't shut her down. You take her seriously, and you don't force him to do yibum. Rashi says even more. You force him to do chalitza. Where do we know this from? Shenemar le'sachsim shor b'dishay. Don't muzzle a ox when it's threshing. And right after that, the pasuk by Yevamos, Kieshu Achem Yachto. So again, we darshan smuchim that don't muzzle a poor widow who doesn't want to marry her brother-in-law. What Rabbi Yosy? Rabbi Yosy said. Now, both of these two examples that we had, the smichos of Lysil Bashatnis, the Gedilim Tasalacha, and the smichos of Lysach Sam Shor B'Dishay, to Kieshu Achem Yachto, are both in Devarim, otherwise known as Mishnah Torah. So if I'm Rabbi Yosef, even if you hold that all over the Torah, you can't darshan smuchim because ein mukam ein muktam umaucher b'Torah. But the Mishnah Torah dorish, everybody agrees that in Devarim you are darshaning smuchim. And the Raivan, which I don't have in my Gemara, but if anyone has a newer Gemara, at the side there's a Haggais Rav Maransberg, and he brings down from a Raivan a nice thought, and that is the rest of the Torah was written by the Rebbeinu Shalom, and therefore we say in Muktam Amulcham Torah. The order of the Torah is not necessarily in chronological order, but Mishnah Torah was the Torah that was set over by Moshe, and Moshe made sure to do things in sequence, to do things in order. So therefore, in Mishnah Torah, you could bring rayas from the fact that Moshe placed things together. So Rabbi Yosef, Afilu Laman, the Loi Dorish, Smuchim, Ba'alma b'Mishnah Torah Dorish. The Ha, Rabbi Yehuda, Ba'alma Loi Dorish. Rabbi Yehuda, we're going to illustrate, we're going to demonstrate that he doesn't darshan Smuchim other places in the Torah, but of a Mishnah Torah Dorish. In Mishnah Torah Devarim he darshan. Uba'alma Minol Loi Dorish. Where do you see that Rabbi Yehuda ignored Smuchim other places in the Torah? The time we learn. Ben Azai said, Nemar, it says, Micha Shefa Loi Sechaya. A woman who's a machshef, who's a witch, she does magic, she must be killed. But we don't know what her misa is. You kill her with skila, with shrefa, with hereg, with chenek. The Nemar, it says, Kol shoichev in behema. Someone who lies with a behema, Moish Yumas, he also dies. Samchu inyan loy. The parsha of Micha Shefa was put together with the parsha of shoichev in behema. Ma shoichev in behema beskila, just like the misa that a shoichev in behema gets is beskila. Af Micha Shefa beskila. So to the machshev is beskila. So using smuchim, we apply the most severe misa to this woman. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda, Zok Rabbi Yehuda, v'chim ipnei shesamchu inyan loy, because there's two psukim together. Noichizel skila. Is that a reason why you're going to put this woman through such a brutal murder? That's not appropriate. Ella, if you want to be able to give this woman skila, you're going to need a much better proof. And the proof is from Oivi Yadayni, which are also these types of magical things. Oivi Yadayni, so before we go weiter, we say karbonos every day. And in karbonos, we have the brisa of Rabbi Shmuel Omer. And Rabbi Shmuel Omer doesn't just mean get on your tefillin quickly because the chazan is about to say Kaddish. It actually lists off, it's a manual. It's a manual on how we darshan the Torah. So one of the ways with which we darshan the Torah is item number 8, Kol Davar Shahaya B'chlal. If there was a mitzvah that was in a category with other mitzvahs, and then the Torah took just one of these items and gave us specific information about it to make it different. The Torah took it out of the cloud to teach us something special about one of these items in the group. Then we say, Loy lelamed al atzma yatsa. The Torah is not just trying to teach something about the specific item that it talked about, Everything in that klal has the halacha that the Torah revealed by one of the items in the klal. So the klal of magicians, of people who do kishif, is a vast one. It includes mechashefa and it includes oiv yadayni. So el oiv yadayni b'chlal mechashefim. There's a general issur of mechashefim. Any type of kishif is also. Oiv yadayni is a specific type. Why did the Torah address directly oiv yadayni if the Torah already said that all of people who do magic get killed? So why did the Torah have to specify that oiv yadayni as well? It's to teach us to teach us that we need to compare all magicians to the halacha that the Torah revealed to us by oiv yadayni. Just like the oiv yadayni gets skila because the Torah says that black and white. So this is using that rule number 8 in Rabbi Shmuel's Brisa. There was a general rule: all mechashefim got killed, and then the Torah specified oiv yadayni gets killed with skila. So we say loy l'lamed al atzmi yatsa. The Torah didn't specify and itemize and give us a halacha specifically for oiv yadayni. It's to teach us that the entire class of mechashefim also get killed with skila. But Rabbi Yehuda refused to use smuchin to give this woman skila. It was only because of this rule number 8. U'b'mishnah Torah we know in the Darsh. And where do you see that Rabbi Yehuda agrees that you do say smuchin, you do dash smuchin in the farm? It's not relearned. Noisa adam anusas avav and mefutas avav. Anusas b'nai mefutas b'nai. We know without a doubt that one may not marry his father's wife, and one not marry his son's wife. That's kalosai. One's Eishes Aviv and one's Kolosai, they're both Chayav Kares. But what if his father raped a woman or had an out of wedlock relationship with her? Then you're allowed to marry her because it's only the marriage that creates the Isser, not the action. And the same thing is with the son. Is also mutter. Rabbi Yehuda, Oyster Banusas Aviv and Mefutas Aviv. Rabbi Yehuda held to no. Your son's anusa or mafuta would be mutter to you. There's no isser kolosai, but there's still going to be an isser to have relations with a woman that your father had relations with. Because it says in the pasuk, lo yikach ish es eshes aviv, v'lo yigale knaf aviv. It says in the pasuk, and we have to look this up again in Devarim Chav Gimel, because this also is involving smuchin. So it says in the pasuk, lo yikach ish es eshes aviv. A person shouldn't marry his father's wife. And then it repeats it, and he shouldn't uncover that's covered over by his father. So kalaf refers to like a beggar. He shouldn't uncover something that the father has covered. So what is this little add-on to the puzzle? So Zok Rabbi Yehuda, so therefore we'll say it's referring to not your father's wife, but even your father's anusa or your father's mother. Why would you say that leigalas knaf avav means anusa? Maybe it means a wife that he was married to. Dr. Gemara, Dr. Yehuda, because I darshan smuchim in Seder Dvarim, and right before the pasuk discusses this halacha of leigalas knaf avav, meilui dekra dechsiv v'nasan isha soichav ima lavi anayra chamishim kas. Samach leigachich. So let's have a quick look over here in the psukim. The pasuk right before is discussing about anusa, someone who rapes a woman, he's got to pay. So it says over here, if one who rapes a woman must marry her and stay married to her forever. He's not allowed to divorce her. And immediately after that, what does the pasuk say? So since they're smuchim, that's how Rabbi Yehuda knew that this was referring to anusa. I just want to point out, it's not directly back to back. It says, then the Torah puts a barrier in between. And then it says, so Rabbi Yehuda is saying that this is still smuchim because it's in the next pasuk, even though there's another halacha that the Torah expressed in between, right? But Rabbi Yehuda holds that is smuchim. So Rabbi Yehuda, it's Seder Dvarim. In Seder Dvarim, I dash smuchim to tell us that one may not have relations with the anusa of his wife. For Rabbanan, the Rabbanan who hold that one may have relations with the anusa of his father, or one may have relations with the foot of his father. Why doesn't he have the smuchim? Zot Rabbanon, he have a samach like the kamrit. If it in fact was back to back, I would agree. So if it says lesuchel l'shachar kol yomov, and directly after that the pasuk would say v'lo yigala knaf aviv, I would agree. But hashad lo samach like here, it's not back to back. The chsiv lo yigach ish es eshes aviv beintayim. In between the lo yigala and the lesuchel l'shachar, there's a small halacha in between. That's mafsik, so it's not smuchim. So I disagree that this is smuchim. And Rabbi Yehuda holds, I guess, since they're in consecutive tukim, that's enough. That's enough. So Zakta Rabbanan, if the lo yigalas knaf aviv is not referring to an iser, it's not referring to an iser of having relations with a woman who your father had relations with. What is it talking about? Zakta Rabbanan b'shemeres yavim hakasav v'daber. The laver love b'shnei lav. So what is the halacha if Shimon was nifter? Shimon was nifter, and he left over a wife without children. Our standard case. So the halacha is Reuben has to marry this woman, right? Let's say Reuben does not marry this woman, and Reuben's son has relations with this woman. So the halacha is right off the bat. That's also. It's also right off the bat. Actually, it's also for any person to have relations with this woman because she has zika to Reuben, and the issue would be a shemeres yavim. Shemeres yavim is over. It's over with halav. She's over. They're over halav. But here there was an additional problem that it was his father shemeres yavim. So that adds another layer of issue. So since lo yigala knaf aviv is telling you that one may not have relations with the shemeres yavim of his father, it's usher anyway because every shemeres yavim is usher to marry anybody. Yeah, in fact there'll be two lavim involved because there'll be the lav of anyone's not allowed to have relations with the shemeres yavim, and this is worse because it's his father's shemeres yavim. And actually, there's a bigger problem. It's actually his aunt. It's his father's brother's wife, which is also an issue. So there's actually three issues. Uva Mishnah Torah, my timer, the Dorish. So in Mishnah Torah, what's the reason? What's the specific reason in these particular smuchim that we listed before? So say tzitzis and by tzitzis, why is it? What's special did Rabbi Yehuda see to dash smuchim here? Either the reason why he darshan smuchim in this particular place is because muchach limit rishinu ahadadi sumchinu, because there's a raya mineu bay that there's no reason why this pasuk should have been near that pasuk. The only reason that we can explain is to teach us halacha, or because the pasuk is completely extra, and those are two reasons why you would darshan smuchim specifically in one area. So why is it muchach? Zok the Gemara, the im came lichdevei rachmana gabe arayis. If so, in this last case over here of smuchim, where Rabbi Yehuda learned from the smichas of asuchel l'shachar kol yama to the lo yigal knaf aviv, from there Rabbi Yehuda learned that it must be speaking about anusas aviv umafutas aviv. How do I know that? Because the imkain lichtavei rachmana gabe arayis. What is this pasuk of lo yikach ishes eshes aviv lo yigal knaf aviv, which is talking about arayis? What is it doing in the middle of kiseitz? It should be in the place where the Torah discusses arayis. So you have a pasuk that's completely out of place. So why did the Torah put it completely out of place and place it near the parsha of Anusa of Lo Yuchal Shachar Kol Yamav? It must be because the Torah is trying to tell us a message, and that is that the Isser of Lo Yigal Knaf Aviv is referring to Anusa's Aviv. Or maybe because the pasuk is completely extra. Dimkein lichtlev rachmana lo yikach ish es eshes aviv, and it should have stopped. Lo yigala knaf aviv lamali. Why in the world did the pasuk say lo yigala knaf aviv? So since the pasuk is completely extra, it must be telling you that it's anusas aviv or mafutas aviv. So what you might ask me is, who said? Maybe the fact that it's extra is not to tell you to dash and smuchim, maybe to tell you what the Rabbanan said, to Asar Shemeres Yavim. So because of that, Tosfos says that the the raya might be from the extra word aviv or from the extra vav of aloi, but that's telling you that there's a connection to the item before. So I'll call upon him. He doesn't just josh in any two psukim that are together. He only dashes two psukim that are together if there's a pressing reason to dash. Either why in the world was this pasuk placed here, it's completely out of place, or because this pasuk is an extra pasuk. And those are the two conditions under which we find that Rabbi Yehuda darshan smooth. Can you say that again? I'm not sure because there's a couple of issues here. There's an issue of it's his aunt, it's still his father's brother's wife, right? She might not be a Shemer Shavim anymore, but and then again, I don't know if the halach of Shemer Shavim, she's not a Shemer Shavim, but she's the Shemer Shavim of her father. After Chalitza, I'm not sure if that goes away. Well, Chalitza actually breaks the bond. Chalitza actually is designed to break the bond. The chi of Chalitza is a zika, right? Of zika. Well, now she's Chalutzas oven. She's Chalutzas oven. But yeah, okay. So I'm not sure what halach is by Chalutzas oven. Maybe we'll learn that throughout the Masech as well. Okay, so that proves to us that the pasuk is extra, and that's why he dashes smoke. The Gabe tzitzis nami. We had tzitzis in the Devarim where it says Gedilim Tasala, it says Lashil B'Shavnis, and then right after that it says Gedilim Tasalacha, and there we dash and smuchim to teach us that even if the tzitzis are klein, you still have to do the mitzvah of tzitzis. So there as well, either this pasuk doesn't belong here, and that's why we dash in the smuchim. The im came, lichted the rechman the gabe pashas tzitzis. Why did the Torah stick here in the middle of the Devarim? Gedilim Tasalacha. There's a parsha of tzitzis elsewhere in the Torah. That's where the Torah should talk about it. But since the Torah pulled the halacha of tzitzis away and planted it near a halacha of shatnez, it proves to us that the Torah wants to dash and smuch. Why was it written over here? It must be to teach us that we need to create a limud from the Isser Shabbos to the mitzvah of tzitzis, that even in a makam of Sober Shabbos, there's still a mitzvah of Gedilim Tasalacha. So let me go back to that pasuk because the Gemara is going to be focusing on it a little bit more. There's the Devarim Chafei. You're allowed to. I don't know if the tzitzis have to be only wool. Tzitzis can only be wool. You're allowed to put woolen tzitzis on a linen bag. Let me just get the pasuk again over here. The pasuk in the Devarim Chafei is. Let's see where we are. I'm sorry. Okay. Well, if you wear cotton tzitzis, then you have wool. If you wear cotton tzitzis, then but the bag is cotton, and then you have for sure tzitzis. You have shatnez because the strings are linen. You have linen. That's right. Where is my pasuk of tzitzis? In Devarim Chafei. I don't know why. I should be right in front of me, but I don't see it up there, unless it's Chavches. Where's the parish of tzitzis? It's Devarim Chafei. Sorry, I'm in the wrong place. So let's go quickly. We're running out of time. So the pasuk says in Devarim Chafei, Gedilim Tasalacha. Al-Arba Kafis Ksuscha Asher Techasaba, and then right before that it says Lashil B'Shabbos. Lashil B'Shabbos Temer Pishim Yachtav. Yedilim Tasach Al-Arba Kafis Ksuscha Asher Techasaba. This pasuk is out of place, so therefore we dash and smooth. The other approach the Gemara says is that we have an extra pasuk over here. If he buys Sema Mishudamufna Michti. Save it says already in Vayikra Uveged Kalayim Shatnis Lo Yala Allah. So the Torah has already taught us about the Isser Shatnez. So loisilba shatnez lamali. Why did the Torah repeat the iser of loisilba shatnez in Devarim? Why did the Torah say that again? Shmami nolafnuye. Obviously, this pasuk is extra. We already have the iser of shatnez, and since we have an extra pasuk that's dumped here in Devarim, right near Gilun Tasalacha, from the smichas we learn that the mitzvah of tzitzis is doicha the iser of shatnez. Zok to Gemara, what are you talking about? Hani matzrich trichi. That's not an extra pasuk. We need a pasuk. We need a pasuk of loisilba shatnez temer upishtim yachdav. You know why? Because of Rechmana lo yala. If we only had the pasuk in Vayikra that says uvelgid klaim shatnez lo yala olecha, without the nutzach of levisha of loisilbash, if it just said lo yala olecha, Ahava mina kol derech hala aser Rechmana. I would have thought that any way a baggage on you, even if it's not derech levisha. For instance, if I have a stack of begadim on my shoulder because I'm carrying it, because I'm selling it, or if I'm just wearing it as a mannequin, but not because I'm trying to gain warmth or comfort from it, you would think that that would be usher as well. So the Torah had to say, because of Rachmana, loy silba shatnez, that it should be dumyo de levisha the isbe'anah. So we need the pasuk over here. It's not extra at all, because we need the Torah to tell us that it's only usher when you're wearing something derech malbush, not just if you're wearing it to display it. But because of Rachmana silbash, so then you might ask, okay, so it should have never said ubeged klaim shatnez lo yal alecha. It should have said ubeged klaim shatnez lo yilbash, and skip this pasuk. No, that wouldn't work either, because then havamina dafka levisha the nafas hanayaisa. I would have thought that the only time shatnez is usher is if you're wearing it to keep yourself warm. You're wearing it as a clothing. But what if you're just wearing it as a mannequin? But you're also having some enjoyment from it. You're also getting warm from it. But that's not the primary purpose of you wearing it. You might think that would not be usher. So we need one pasuk that says like silbash. We need another pasuk that says lecha to teach us that even wearing it not as a malbush, if you happen to be gaining benefit as a malbush from it while you're wearing it to display, that would also be usher. Zok to Gemara, okay, but it's still extra. You know why? Because in Kain v'lichte v'rachmana lesilbas shatnez. Here in Devarim, all we're trying to teach us is it has to be derech malbush. So it says lesilbas shatnez. Why did the pasuk firois semer upishtim yachdav? Why did it have to tell us what that shatnez is if we already know it? Why did the Torah have to specify semer upishtim lamali? Why is it not extra? It doesn't say. It doesn't say anywhere. It says uveged klaim shatnez lo yal alecha in Vayikra. It doesn't say what the shatnez is made out of. It doesn't say temer upishtim. So how could you say temer upishtim is extra here? Where else would we know that the definition of shatnez is temer upishtim? Zok Gemara, I'll tell you how I would have known it even if the Torah didn't tell you. Because michti kasav ubeged klaim shatnez lo yal alecha. The Torah said that shatnez is a problem with a beged. And we're going to learn from the Tanakh of Rabbi Shmuel that whenever the Torah says beged, anywhere in the Torah, it means temer and pishtim. By definition, by default. So why do I need the Torah to tell me temer and pishtim yachtav if I already know that it's temer and pishtim because it uses the word beged? So temer and pishtim is extra, and that's why he can darshan the smuchim. So where do you get this from? That every beged stam means temer and pishtim. We're telling you Rabbi Shmuel, hoil v'nemru b'Torah stam begodim. The Torah all over the Torah uses the word beged. And one place in the Torah says that a beged is temer and pishtim, and that's in Parshas Tazria, where it's talking about negoyim, and it said if you have a nega beveged temer or beveged pishtim. So from there we know every time the Torah says beged, it means temer or pishtim. So therefore we know afkol temer or pishtim. So therefore we would have known when it said uveged klaim shatnez lo yal alecha, we would have known it means temer upishtim, because by definition the word beged always means temer upishtim. So therefore, temer upishtim, because of Rachmana lamali, in the Parshat Devarim, where it says like silva shatnez, why did the Torah have to say that means temer upishtim? We know that anyway. Shemami no lafnuye, so it's extra, and therefore we could dash the smuchim to tzitzis. Frank the Gemara, bakati itzrich. I still need the Torah to tell me that silva shatnez is temer upishtim. You know why? Because salkadaita chamina halah he the nafesh hanaasa of the levisha the nafesh hanaasa kol trei mini asa. It says in Vayikra uveged klaim shatnez lo yala olech. So you're telling me I already know that there's an iser of shatnez. And I already know it's temer upishtim. So why did the Torah have to speak out temer upishtim over here? Very simple. Because when it says Ubeka climb shatnez lo yala olecha, there it only means temer upishtim. You know why? Because you don't have major hana from just putting it on you. But maybe by the silbash, where you're having more hana from it, maybe the restriction is on more begadim as well. And maybe there it's not limited to temer upishtim. Maybe then any two different types of fabrics would be usher because of shatnez. So that there's that Gemara because of Achmona Temer Pishtim. So the Torah said Temer Pishtim, where it said Silbash to tell you that even if it's a levisha, even if you're wearing it, it's only prohibited to wear Temer Pishtim together. But any other combination of fabrics wouldn't be a problem. Correct the Gemara. That's not a reason why the Torah had to write Temer Pishtim. The Torah could have still omitted Temer Pishtim. In going to list Kramina, the Tesi shatnez, mehalah. All it had to say was Silbash shatnez. And we would have dashed the Gzera Shava. The same way shatnez over there means only Temer and Pishtim, so too the shatnez here means only Temer and Pishtim. So once again, I still have an extra word, Temer Pishtim. Since it's extra, I could dash this more. The Tanit very bishmol. So now let's go drill down. Tanit very bishmol. Taima, the cause of Rachman and Temer Pishtim. The only reason why we were able to dash this muchim in Devarim is because Temer Pishtim is extra in Devarim. Halavachim. If it wasn't for the fact that it said Temer Pishtim, Kalayim B'tzitzis, Have Amina, the Asher Achmana, you would have thought that you're not allowed to put tzitzis on your beged if it would result in shatnez. But it says, Baksiv, Vasulahem tzitzis, Al Kanfei Big Dayim. Big Dayim also means Temer Upishtim in the parish of tzitzis. The Tanit Ve'er B'Shmo, called Begadim, Temer Upishtim Hain. And the Amar Achmana, the Torah said about a beged, which we know is defined as Temer Upishtim, Ovid Leit Chelas. Put chelas in, with chelas amru. It says al kavi b'gdayim. You should put up psil chelas, and we know chelas has to mean wool. How do you know chelas mean wool? Maybe chelas means linen, and then it's not shatnez at all, right? Zogt the Gemara. We might that chelas amru. Zogt the Gemara. Mit the sheish kisna. If sheish is linen, chelas must be wool. Where do you get that from? So Rashi explains very beautifully because it says regarding the Big Day Kahuna. So I'm looking at the Rashi, Duchelas Amra. With the Sheish Kisna, the Chsev in the Pasuk, Michlis Ebad, Sheish Mosra. When it's talking about the Big Day Kahuna, specifically the pants, it's called the Sheish Mosra. And we know Bad defines what Sheish is, because Bad, Hainu Pishta. We know Bad is linen. So that means Sheish Mosra is linen. Bad is Dover Ha'ila Bad Bad. It grows in such a way. So therefore, Tchelas must be Amr, must be wool. The chain sharts svarim ha'amur v'bikekuna, and all the other colors like argamon also means dyed wool and not dyed linen. Argamon telashani. Why is that? So Rashi she'ein bigdekuna elami temer pishtim. There were only two types of fabric that were ever used to make bigdekuna. Tichsev b'sefer Yecheskel v'yom Kippurim bigdei pishtim yilbashu v'lo yala aleim temer. Shemami no, you see from here sha'avoidus hachitzoynos. So that was talking about the big Yom Kippur where it was only white linen. But the avodas hachitzonos, meaning not Yom Kippur, yesh b'em temer im pishta. We know all of the big dekuna had wool and linen. V'loy minacher, and there was no other fabric used by the kohanim. U'demefire scrub b'sheish ve'echad min aminin. Since when the Torah said michnas bad sheish, so that means the Torah is trying to make a point. This item only is linen. It must be shmamina, sharmi, and all the other begadim that I discussed must be made out of wool. So that's how I know techelis must be made out of wool. So I would have already known that I say doichaloisa, because just from the words also lohem titzis akaf bigdayim psil techelis, that tells me that you could use klayim titzis. So that's tomorrow. No, I still need it. It's true. So kedai techamina kedarava. I would have thought like Rava. The Rava had a kasha. Siv hakanaf. It says you should put on the kanaf psil techelis. So hakanaf you would dash and min kanaf. Whatever the kanaf is made out of, that's the only species you can use for your tzitzis. So your strings have to be made out of the same fabric as the material of your beged. But then it says, Uksiv Temer Upishtin. Haketzat. What is Rav Dashim there? Temer Upishtin, Poitrin Bein Biminon, Bein Shalai Biminon. If you make the tzitzis out of Temer Upishtin, then no matter what fabric you have, even polyester, it doesn't make a difference. Temer and Pishtin will always work. But Shar Minin, but if you have tzitzis of some other fabric, if you have tzitzis that are not made out of temer or not made out of pishton, then the minon poitrin, if you use them on their type of fabric. So let's say I use polyester tzitzis with polyester fabric, it would work. But shaloi b'minin ein paita. So Zok Gemara, if the pasuk wouldn't have said Semeru Pishtim, I would have darshened that it has to be min kana. So maybe I need Semeru Pishtim to tell me that tzitzis of Semer and Pishtim work for everything. Maybe that's what I need Semer Pishtim. So once again, Semer Pishtim isn't extra. And if Semer Pishtim isn't extra, I don't have Smuchim again. Zok Gemara. What time is it? It's 51. Should we continue or should we stop? We're already getting close to Shachris. It goes on for a little while still. It goes on for a little while. So we'll finish up here Midshim on Shabbos. How much Shabbos? But I'm here on Shabbos. So we'll finish on Shabbos. Shabbos is a smaller daf. It's just getting very close to Shachris already. Okay. We'll stop here. Does anybody know? Does anybody? We'll learn on Shabbos.
Oh, I thought you said you're not here Shabbos.
Well, today is Erev Shabbos.
I thought you said you're not here Shabbos.
No, I am here Shabbos.
How could it be possible? We need the
Purim
Purim roof.
Shabbos.
Oh, I was getting nervous because we wouldn't have the Purim roof. What would we do?
Oh, I don't think we're having anything this Shabbos. I think they're making something next Shabbos.
Really?
That's what Akiva said.
Why?